My breastfeeding journey has officially come to an end, and it's very bittersweet, I will say. I kind of wanted to make a little video as an ode to my breastfeeding journey, share a little bit about my breastfeeding journey with you all and a few tips as well, because I know that it is not the easiest thing out there. So I thought it could be of use to share a little bit about my journey, my experience, and any tips that I have as a mom of an almost 9.5-month-old, like 9.5, 10, almost 10 months, which is crazy. Time is flying. Let's go ahead and dive into it, talk about breastfeeding. First things first, I want to start off by saying, one, I am not a lactation consultant. So if you have very, very specific questions or whatever about breastfeeding, I definitely recommend reaching out to a lactation consultant. So that's the first thing. Second thing I wanted to say is I personally believe that fed is best. So whatever that means for you, your family, this is just, again, my experience, how things have worked out for me. And actually my baby is on solids and formula now. I am, again, officially done breastfeeding, and we still have a couple more months before she can transition to whole milk. So I definitely am a believer in formula. I just think as long as your baby is fed and happy, then that is all you should care about. All right, so a little bit about my experience with breastfeeding. So I actually went in to childbirth and breastfeeding and all of that with a very, very kind of low expectation, low bar. I know that breastfeeding is really, really hard for a lot of people. So I kind of went in with the expectation of like, if it works out, great. If not, I am totally fine with giving her formula. In fact, for a while during my pregnancy, I was kind of like, I don't even know if I want to try breastfeeding. It just didn't really sound like something I wanted to try. And because of that, I was kind of thinking like I would just give her formula the whole time. And it was actually my husband who kind of said like, you should just give it a try. Like I would hate for you to kind of miss out on something just because you didn't want to give it a try. And I was like, okay, you're right. Like I'll try it at least and kind of see how it goes. And if it's really hard and difficult and emotionally draining, like I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to be okay with formula. So I will start out with saying that was kind of my mindset going into breastfeeding. I think because of that, there was not as much like stress or worry on my part for like trying to force it to happen. I was, again, very open to formula. So I think that took a lot of pressure off of myself for things to just work out as they needed to. When your baby is born, the nurse literally just like hands them to you and is like, all right, breastfeed. So it's pretty crazy because when it's your first child, you're like, okay, what do I even do? So I kind of just like, I remember I just kind of like put her, there and was like, I guess that's all I am supposed to do. And she actually surprisingly just like latched pretty much right away, which was crazy. It was crazy that like, I think babies are just programmed to start like suckling basically. And then it's also crazy that the woman's body just knows to like start producing milk as soon as the baby is born. So Charlie actually like latched on pretty much right away, which was awesome. However, my milk supply did not come in for a while, so that was kind of where we hit a little bit of a rough patch with breastfeeding. She was trying to latch, she was trying to eat, and I was not producing milk yet, so she started getting kind of hungry, kind of fussy, and I actually did end up giving her a little bit of formula in the hospital when we were still there because she hadn't like really had any bowel movements or anything, so they wanted to make sure that she was all good with that. And so we actually gave her some formula to kind of help get the process going while still continuing to try and get my milk in. I remember when my milk came in, your girly pops, they get rock hard, they get huge. It's pretty crazy, but it's also, again, pretty amazing what the female body does when it goes through pregnancy and childbirth. So I think my milk came in maybe like a week after I gave birth, and which again, it did take a while, and that's why I am glad that I used some formula to kind of get us through that phase. I was definitely worried though that because she was doing a little bit of formula during that time, like that she was not going to want to go back to the boob, but she did. She went back fine, and I was very grateful that ultimately like breastfeeding was pretty easy for us. So I will say it kind of after giving birth, it was probably around 2 weeks postpartum, I actually started going to a breastfeeding support group that my hospital where I delivered offers. They are there every single week, and I'm very, very grateful to have that support system and support group during my breastfeeding journey, because there were definitely times when I was really struggling. It was really hard, or it was really painful, or I was oversupplying, or whatever. And it was nice to be able to not only talk to a lactation consultant, but also talk to other moms that had previously or recently gone through something similar. So if you can find any sort of breastfeeding support groups in your area, I definitely recommend doing that. And if there's not one that you're aware of, like at your hospital or whatever, you could always check Facebook. There's definitely at least like group forums where people at least talk on, Facebook or whatever about their experience. So definitely recommend checking that out. I remember I went through a phase where I was way overproducing. So I was collecting milk in the haka on one side and having her feed on the other side, and I was getting a solid like 2, 3, even 4 ounces at times from doing that, which is so crazy. And there were times where milk was just shooting right out of me. So I am definitely glad that I was able to like build up a little bit of a stash, because once my supply started dropping around 6 months, I started dipping into that stash of frozen breast milk. So around 6 months, going back to kind of my journey, around 6 months, I started kind of weaning a little bit, not really intentionally, but my baby absolutely loves solid foods. So she has just kind of lost interest in her milk a little bit. And because of that, my supply has dropped, and it's started to feel like much more of an uphill battle of trying to pump, trying to get my supply up, trying to do all these things, and it was just like not working. And ultimately I was kind of like, you know what, I feel like I'm just driving myself into the ground trying to increase my milk supply, and it's fine. Like, she's on solids. It's been 6 months of strictly breast milk. I think I'm okay with starting to transition to formula. Probably around the 7 or 8 month mark was when we started introducing formula, and at about 9 months was when she was pretty much fully weaned off, which is again about like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So pretty crazy. But yeah, ultimately, like, I had a really positive experience breastfeeding. Like I said, she latched right away. She didn't have any sort of issues with like a tongue tie or anything like that. And I would again say that if you are struggling or whatever, like, I highly recommend reaching out to a lactation consultant and seeing if there's any, issues kind of going on with baby that need corrected in order to improve the experience. And even if there's nothing wrong, like with Charlie, they gave me really good pointers as far as like how her mouth should be positioned and how to like optimize the flow and all of those things. So I think it was just definitely really beneficial to have those resources. So I also just wanted to quickly share a few, I guess, tips or pointers from my experience. Again, we had a really positive experience, so hopefully these help some moms out there. The first thing is, I would highly recommend, again, having low expectations. If you can be okay with the fact that your baby might not latch well, it might be painful, you can be okay with the fact that it's not going as you thought, and be okay with giving formula, then I think you're gonna have a much more positive experience. And I think that that's why it was a lot easier for me, because I wasn't putting pressure on myself, essentially. So try not to put pressure on yourself, and remember that fed is best. Some practical pointers that I remember from my days of going to the breastfeeding support group and lactation consultants: if you can get a boppy nursing pillow, that will just help keep baby in like the optimum feeding position. So get a boppy pillow or other nursing pillow that will just help get them in position and make it a lot easier for you. You want to make sure that their like lips are like both curved out, if that makes sense. That was one thing that I definitely struggled with. So once they latch, you can kind of like stick your pinky finger under their lips and curl them out. It will help them just like suckle better, I guess, if that makes sense. So that's one thing I always kind of look out for. And then another big tip I received was like, don't wait until baby is like starving to try breastfeeding, because think about when you're cranky and hungry, you want food right now. You don't want to like have to work for it. But if you give yourself a snack or whatever earlier on before you're starving, then it's not so bad. You don't get so hangry. Well, your baby works like that too. So I definitely was trying to breastfeed every like 2 hours on the 2 hour mark at the beginning while we kind of were figuring it out, because I wanted to make sure that she wasn't like getting to a point where she was super frustrated and hangry, basically. And then a few other just kind of like things that I would purchase, I guess, if you haven't yet given birth or are about to give birth soon, or you just recently started breastfeeding and you're looking for some ways to make your life a little bit easier. Nursing pads, I definitely recommend those. I used those like a lot for probably probably the first like 3 months, because my milk supply was kind of like all over the place. While I was trying to figure it out, I would leak a lot, so that just helped save clothes and embarrassment out in public. I also bought these like booby ice packs. Those came in clutch right when my milk was coming in, so I used those like probably every day, and even later on too, when there was a point when my supply was up really high and my boobs were getting just like really hard. That can just help like ease some of the pain. Definitely recommend that. Nipple cream, that's gonna help a ton at the beginning when they are starting to figure it out and your nipples are going to be so sensitive and it's going to hurt. Not to scare you off, but the nipple cream out there that they make actually does really help with that. And then there's some other things that I did not use, like nipple shields you can buy, things like that to help them latch. There's also like those like brass cups that kind of like help protect from like chafing on your, you know, bra or whatever when they're already tender. And then I would also, on that topic, recommend getting nursing bras. That just makes everything so much easier to just be able to like pop it down. A nursing pillow, I already talked about that. And then I definitely recommend getting a Haka or other like manual breast pump so that you can have baby on one side and be collecting milk on the other. And lastly, just remember that it's new for both of you, it's new for everybody, so try and give yourself and baby a little bit of grace, a little bit of patience when it comes to navigating this new thing. It's brand new for them, it's brand new for you, and you know, every baby is different, so just try and give yourself some grace, some patience, and remember that if it's not working out, that's why formula exists. And thank God we live in a time that that's an option, because you know, 100 years ago that probably wasn't an option, and it takes a lot of pressure off of us to know that that is like a backup. So I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I've had some people like asking me about my breastfeeding journey, and I think now that it finally came to a close, it was like the perfect time to make a little video about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, I'm super happy to answer them about breastfeeding, my experience, or any other like specific questions. By the way, I will link all those products I just mentioned down in the description box. But thank you so much for watching, and I will catch up with you next time.